Alright, hi everybody, welcome to the Scarlet Indesign Adobe walkthrough. This is for anyone perspective that's interested in learning more about what we do to edit for layout. If you're interested in doing more, we generally meet as a group before print, and we invite anyone that's just interested in getting more familiar with the process, even if you aren't really interested in necessarily doing InDesign editing. We recommend that you stop by, get familiar with it. We usually just meet in the library when we do this, and we did it last time and it was really fun. So yeah, if you're interested in doing that, feel free to reach out. We'll be posting about it likely in the Discord and the email if you are. So yeah, basically right now I just have InDesign open now. If you can see here, this is InDesign. I have a blank one open at the moment with this nice font. You can also see I have my step-by-step that I'll be going to in a little bit. But yeah, I thought, this is page 4 and 5. Just a pretty good example of what the middle pages look like, the meat of everything. And I cleared out the last edition, which I actually have open here because I want to shout out. But this is what the page looked like in our last print edition. And I wanted to say I was a really big fan of what Everett did here with the intercollegiate news. And I'll talk more about spacing and trying to fill up as much space as possible for articles, but I thought this was a really good, well done job of what we're looking for in terms of spacing and just, general, just vision, very aesthetically pleasing. So good job, Everett. Alright, so before I get into the actual editing process, I just want to go over some rules that I wrote. This will be pretty brief. I'll try to, get, clearer, more in depth as we edit the article. But the first step is readability. I think this is the most important. Generally, when we're editing articles, and let me just close this real quick. The idea is you want the text to be roughly around 10 point, so like 9.5. Everett did a good job of mostly doing 9.5, and I think really honestly keeping the spacing pretty good. And you do want to keep it around the same size in theory because consistency, it looks very nice. Personally, what I do is I mix the leading and the text to fit the page, as long as it's not like too egregious. But I feel like sometimes it has, you kind of gotta do what you gotta do sometimes, right? Like for example, this one, the text is at 11.76, the spacing, the leading is at 14, and it's a bit of a short article, so I tried to kind of just mess with it. But you can see, like for this one's a bit longer, so 11.2, 12.345. So I tried just making like small corrections as I go, just to fit the page. But you do want to keep it around roughly the same size because people are going to notice if it is, like even like this one, people probably could tell. But as long as it isn't too absurd, no harm, no foul in my eyes. But the most important thing I think is readability. So kind of going along with that, you don't really want too small text. For example, you want it all to be pleasing for the eyes as much as you can. Secondly, fonts. We run a few fonts. Let's just take a look at our lovely fonts. So for example, and Adobe does a really good job too of having fonts available. You can download fonts on the Adobe site very easy. All of the fonts that I use were downloaded through the Adobe site. But generally we use Playfair Display, Ivy Pro, Presto Display, sometimes Neuron and some Arial. This is a newer one that I've introduced. Less script. It's more, hip. Gray is a classic. Minion Pro, I think I already said, but yeah, these are like the go-tos. And the idea is you just want to keep it consistent with, what you're doing. Make sure everyone's using the same fonts, and if you're the final editor, just approving everything. Consistency, okay, that's number 4, but consistency, fonts plays with that. Fill in the space, try to avoid the white space, self-explanatory. I'll go into that more as we write. And play as you go, okay, so you want to be, creative with what you're writing about. You are trying to use that space creatively, so mix it up, put a photo in a different place, use quotes in the margins, just work with InDesign because it is a very flexible tool. People use it for a lot of different stuff, not just newspapers, but magazines, journals, so, there's a lot you can do with it, and I encourage you to try out new things because that will just improve your skills as well. Alright, so the article I chose for today is going to be Sophia's on wild bison. She did a very good job with this article. It's got a good image of bison. It's up on the Scarlet website. And, I just thought this would be a good example. We don't use the text from the Scarlet site. I feel like it just gets a little bit messy. You kind of want to use the one from the doc. If you're interested in doing InDesign, we can certainly share that with you. And actually, you'll see here that in InDesign, which is what I have open here, I actually already have some of the work done. And that's because I already did some of this video, and then I had to cut it because I didn't have the screen open, so sorry about that. But you can see here that I have the intro and the first part done. Okay, so I'll just go over briefly what I did. So I always start with the header to make things just look very nice in the beginning. So I did Playfair Display. That's kind of like our first font that we use. It's the Scarlet font. I try, especially because this is one of the first pages, it's nice to start out with Playfair Display. Very simple, very news-like. I think this looks pretty good for an intro page. And you'll see here that I put this red block here. I was been more inspired to do this recently. I'll get more into it with framing, but it frames the article very nicely, and B, it kind of inspired me from old Scarlet articles, how they use red a lot, and it just pops out very nicely. So I've been trying to do that more with our articles because I feel like it looks nice. Like I feel like the Scarlet red is a good color, so including that, especially since that is our name, it just makes sense, right? So basically where I got caught up last time before I stopped recording was I was just talking about framing real quick, and I think since I already have it open, I'll just go into it again. But okay, so in Venetian portraiture, I'm an art history minor, so I just want to talk about this because I feel like this is part of what inspired me. You'll see a lot of times is in a painting, they'll, especially, so this is Giorgione, who's like a very well-known Venetian painter, portraiture from, the Renaissance, and this is an example of one of his paintings where you can see the wall kind of frames the sitter, right? So it gives a bit of three-dimensionality to it. It centers the sitter, and when I try to edit an article, I try to like start off with a good title to kind of put balance into everything. And an important part about that too is like when you start an article, you need to put the photos into consideration as well. So like, excuse me, you just gotta think about that. Especially when you got all this white space here, it's a good time to kind of picture, maybe in your head or on a piece of paper, what you envision the article to look like what you want to do. And a good tip for that too is what I've learned was like when in high school I did layout, they told me that like a good article or a good page, you can put your hand on it and it'll be touching some type of graphic. And it doesn't always necessarily have to do that. Like that's not like sometimes you just have a really long article and that's it, and that's fine too. But the idea is that you should have something just to stand out, especially when you have like a 16-page newspaper. You're gonna want the pages to kind of separate from each other a little bit, or else it's gonna be very dry for the reader, if you get what I mean. So obviously their consistency is important, but you also want to make sure that like the newspaper's pleasing to look at, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So you gotta think about that. You gotta balance that. So like I said, we edit. We choose to put the text in from Google Drive. So that's what we're gonna do next. I don't think I talked about this, so let me just say this. I noticed something that a lot of people do is they'll put the Scarlet sample text, like the stuff in every InDesign copy will have like the sample graphics, right? I've noticed that sometimes people will put the Scarlet staff or like the header here, they'll put that with the body text, and I just recommend not doing that. The reason why I think it's important to keep it in its separate space is when I format the text, I feel like I don't necessarily want all of those effects to go into the header. Like I feel like consistency with the header is important, and I also think that you want it to just be in the front. It just pops out like that. You can move it around if you so chose, depending on the graphic. So I try to avoid putting that in its own thing, but I will say for the rest of the text, and as you can see here now, I'm just kind of fidgeting with the box, right? So you always want to keep it within the purple lines if you can. I feel like it is kind of confusing because there are two of them, you can get it mixed up, but you want to keep it in that first box, just like that. That starts the second box, keep that consistency, because that will make things, look very even and professional. So I'm just starting out by putting everything in its box, because that's just kind of like a good place to start off, get an idea of how much space you have, before you really kind of get into the nuts and bolts of it, right? So, and obviously you can see here I'm adding different boxes just by pressing. There's the small red button here, and that just says that like when you copy text into a box, especially when it's an article length like this, you won't see all of the text at first, right? And that's because it's all hidden, basically. But if you keep pressing that red box, you keep doing that, you can fill it up like this. And oh my gosh, once you have it all open, you can tell, because you can see here like the box doesn't fill all the way. So that's good. We have some space here. Obviously this isn't formatted in the right way. This isn't the right text in any way, or like, this is just straight out of the box. I feel like it always goes to Minion Pro for some reason. And that's not, Minion Pro is not used for this. It doesn't really, it looks weird as a body text. We use Times New Roman actually, I believe. So yeah, let's start off by changing that and just upload. We got our bison photo here. Oh, and you know what? Okay, maybe the Scarlet WordPress site is just giving me a bad rap, because actually that photo is very big. And you can see too that actually this is like a photo that's it's already got a courtesy here. Obviously we didn't take this photo, and it's important to recognize that that can be a bit dangerous. I wasn't actually involved with you know, the approval of this photo, so I'm assuming, you know, the license is Creative Commons, or you know, we have the right to use this photo, but it's important to make sure that we are sourcing the article from the right place, because we have gotten in trouble for that before. And it's just in general too, like, there are ways to get around it too, right? And if you're interested in learning more about that, I would recommend you come over, you know, come talk to me, and I'll tell you about how I try to edit photos. I mean, if you've seen my publication for some web articles in particular, I've done some editing on some of the photos submitted. Some that, I mean, like, I don't really love the Dr. Perky one that I just did, but like, that's an example of one where like I edited a photo to, you know, just make it a little bit less suable is one way to do it. I mean, fair use is very important. And as you can see here too, by the way, sorry I'm not really describing what I'm doing here, but to catch up, I uploaded the photo, I resized it, okay, and something I've seen a lot too is people are a little unsure of resizing, which is okay. But as you can see, you got our two arrows here. We got top arrow, bottom arrow, right? And they, of course, serve two different functions. So this is bottom arrow, and it stretches the photo out, and it's like, wow, look at this crazy cow, am I right? Well, bison, you know what I mean? And you're like, Matt, like, what the hell? Like, what did you just do to the bison? Like, what's wrong with you? Sorry about that. Back we go. Contour where fit, much better. But that's just direct selection tool. It stretches out the photo, but it doesn't fuck with the borders. This one, if you're trying to border the photo, like you're trying to put it into the article, you definitely, I think this one is the more useful one, because to be honest, I'm gonna be real, Adobe, I don't usually use this arrow, or if I do, it's by accident, because frankly, I just use the fitting feature, and I use one of these three: content aware fit content proportionally, or fit frame proportionally, right? So, depending on the photo and what you're trying to do, content aware fit is generally the most reliable, but you know, it really depends on what you're trying to do. I've had to use all three definitely before, so. Yeah, and this is what we got so far. You can see here the red squares here, so we don't have the whole article, and it's important to acknowledge that. I'm just realizing too now that like this box is like way too big. Alright, I'm back. I went ahead and I changed some of the layout just to fix the margins, because that was really stressing me out, to be honest. And as you can see, the photo is a bit smaller. I had to put it in the box because you know, within the margins because it was a little too big, and then it's messing with this box, and then that box was too big, and it really stressed me out after I, you know, got a full grasp of what was going on. So now we're about this big, and this is okay. Like, you know, depending on how crazy I'm feeling, you know, this could work, to be honest. Like, you could just edit the leading just a little bit, like I'm doing here. So I just moved it 0.1, 0.2, and 0.2 work. That has led it to be, you know, right size. And then also just noticing now that this doesn't have all the words. There we go. Okay, see, that's a lot better. And overall, this feels a bit tighter than what we started with. The text is definitely a bit tighter. Alright, so one other cool thing that we do is we put quotes in boxes, and then, you know, you can use that as a way to attract, you know, people's attention. This kind of stuff could also be used for, like, graphics. Like, say you want to put a map in your article. Okay, you can do a box kind of similar to this, and you know, it's the same picture. So the one thing you gotta know when you're doing a box like this is, first, you always have to change the settings. So go to text frame, hit options, and then when you hit general, hit ignore text wrap, because if you don't do that, it'll come up, you know, looking really weird. So obviously this looks a little gross. You're gonna want to use, you know, any of these fonts. I'm gonna just try Arial because I feel like that gives it a bit of a modernist look. And I don't think I would actually use Arial like this in, that looks so weird, oh my gosh. I wouldn't use Arial in a print edition, but I'm just kind of liking how it looks right now, for whatever reason. I don't know, it gives very a clean look, but again, yeah, we don't usually use Arial in this way. So just keep that in mind. I would probably use Playfair Display, or this would be a good time to use Minion Pro. Ivy Presto look pretty nice actually, or Georgia. Yeah, Alec Gray, it doesn't really look good in that situation. So either way, yeah, so it's in Arial, and it actually looks grosser the more I look at it, but this is my grave, and we're gonna dig it. So as you can see now, there's no border in between the text and the body, and that is pretty bad. Like, that looks really gross, to be honest. So you're gonna want to make sure that there's a box, and again, with consistency, I noticed that you're gonna want to keep the box, all the boxes that you use, roughly at the same depth, unless it's like a specific, like you have multiple articles and you need it to be extra dark for some reason. Like, you just generally, if the lining of the borders like that are not the same, like, it's just gonna look kind of weird in a final edition. So yeah, this is a good sample, I would say. Obviously the text is not all in the same. Like, you would have to mess with this a little bit more, or go to another page. Obviously this huge chunk of graphic is taking up some more space, but if you can get it all to work, you know, that's just generally the goal. One final thing too is you always want to make sure that this is consistent. Page number, section, the Scarlet, the date, and then on this side there's no left hand, it's just the section again on this side, and then the page. Yeah, so this is going to wrap up my video on digital layout, InDesign. I hope you learned something. I hope you took a little bit of knowledge out of this. If you have any questions regarding InDesign, you know what we do, or you're interested in getting more involved, please email the Scarlet at clarku.edu or email. Contact me, Matt Rushford, on email, or come to a meeting. We meet every week, Wednesdays at 8:30. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in, and yeah, I hope you have a good day. Thanks.